And finally, new rule: if something about the human race is changing at a previously unprecedented rate, we have to at least discuss it. Broken down over time, the LGBT population of America seems to be roughly doubling every generation. According to a recent Gallup poll, less than 1% of Americans born before 1946, that's Joe Biden's generation, identify that way. 2.6% of boomers do, 4.2% of Gen X, 10.5% of millennials, and 20.8% of Gen Z. Which means if we follow this trajectory, we will all be gay in 2054.
Good morning. It's Friday, March the 10th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the Star Spangled Banner, we will have 2 episodes of Tucker-Carlson, Donald Trump, no free lunch, 30 emotional manipulation tactics, mark-kaye, and the Medal of Honor. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and remove your hats for the national anthem of the United States of America.
Thank you. And now, there's no free lunch. 250 Economic Truths by David Bahnsen.
Political power. Viewed as a means to the end of political freedom, economic arrangements are important because of their effect on the concentration or dispersion of power. The kind of economic organization that provides economic freedom directly, namely competitive capitalism, also promotes political freedom because it separates economic power from political power and in this way enables the one to offset the other. Milton Friedman. This masterful quote is almost self-explanatory, but the message behind it is so profoundly important. A vicious cycle exists where there is limited political freedom that facilitates limited economic freedom, let alone civic freedom. But a virtuous cycle exists where economic power is separated as much as possible from political power. Limiting the size of government, political power, is the only way to limit the capacity for using political power to enhance economic power.
And that was 250 Economic Truths, No Free Lunch by David Bahnsen. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little bit of mark-kaye.
Donald Trump standing up in front of a crowded CPAC convention hall and doubling down on his efforts and his promises to make America great again and put America first.
This is the final battle. They know it. I know it. You know it. Everybody knows it. This is it. Either they win or we win. And if they win, we no longer have a country. Put me back in the White House. Their reign is over. Their reign will be over. And they know it. And America will be a free nation once again. We're not a free nation right now. We don't have free press. We don't have free anything. In 2016, I declared, I am your voice. Today I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
Donald Trump's.
And that was mark-kaye. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, 5 minutes with Donald Trump about World War III.
World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists and the deep state, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the national security industrial complex. One of the reasons I was the only president in generations who didn't start a war is that I was the only president who rejected the catastrophic advice of many of Washington's generals, bureaucrats, and the so-called diplomats who only know how to get us into conflict, but they don't know how to get us out. For decades, we've had the very same people, such as Victoria Nuland and many others just like her, obsessed with pushing Ukraine toward NATO, not to mention the State Department support for uprisings in Ukraine. These people have been seeking confrontation for a long time, much like the case in Iraq and other parts of the world, and now we're teetering on the brink of World War III. And a lot of people don't see it, but I see it, and I've been right about a lot of things. They all say Trump's been right about everything. None of this excuses in any way the outrageous and horrible invasion of Ukraine 1 year ago, which would have never happened if I was your president, not even a little chance. But it does mean that here in America, we need to get rid of the corrupt globalist establishment that has botched every major foreign policy decision for decades. And that includes President Biden, whose own people said he's never made a good decision when it comes to looking at other countries and looking at wars. We have to replace them with people who support American interests. Over our 4 years in the White House, we made incredible progress in putting the America Last contingent aside and bringing the world to peace. And now we're going to complete the mission. The State Department, Pentagon, and national security establishment will be a very different place by the end of my administration. In fact, just into my administration, it'll be a very different place, and it'll get things done, just like I did 4 years ago. We never had it so good. We'll also stop the lobbyists and the big defense contractors from going in and pushing our senior military and national security officials toward conflict, only to reward them when they retire with lucrative jobs, getting paid millions and millions of dollars. Take a look at the globalist warmonger donors backing our opponents. That's because they're candidates of war. I am the president who delivers peace, and it's peace through strength. There was a reason we had no conflict. There was a reason we didn't get into wars, because other countries respected us. I entirely built, all right from the beginning, rebuilt our military. It's a big reason for that. They didn't want to mess around with the United States, and now they're laughing at us. We could end the Ukraine conflict in 24 hours with the right leadership. At the end of my next 4 years, the warmongers and frauds and failures in the senior ranks of our government will all be gone, and we will have a new group of competent national security officials who believe in defending America's vital interests above all else.
Thank you very much.
And that was Donald Trump talking about national security and World War III. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little bit of Tucker-Carlson. This is, I think, going to be a pretty good segment here, and it looks like it's 7 minutes long.
The battle of the sexes has finally ended after several million years of jockeying and strife. Men won conclusively. We know this because yesterday was International Women's Day. That's the day we as a global community celebrate women. But if you looked closely at the women we were celebrating, you may have noticed a lot of them weren't actually women. They were lumpy-looking dudes. And that was not accidental. In fact, it was a brilliant piece of sexual jujitsu. Sun Tzu could have written that strategy. Here you had men who are clearly craftier than they look, somehow convincing a whole lot of otherwise self-aware and highly educated women to praise them as living paragons of womanhood. Think about how hard it would be to sell that proposition. I'm going to steal your identity and then mock and degrade the immutable characteristics that define you as a person. And then as I do this, you are going to smile brightly and applaud and then give a speech about how liberated you feel. How about that? The whole thing is amazing. It's like watching a practical joke devised by the drunkest, most cynical fraternity brothers at the University of Alabama during a hungover breakfast at Denny's. You can picture them all there in baseball hats, dipping Copenhagen, spitting into their coffee mugs. Think we got girls to fall for that? No way! They'll never buy it. Oh, but they did. They bought it, and it wasn't really that hard to sell it. Liberals will fall for anything if they think it is fashionable and progressive. And so before long, the practical joke from Denny's at the University of Alabama made it all the way to the White House, where it was taken with the utmost seriousness. Here's Jill Biden and Secretary Tony Blinken handing out an award on International Women's Day to a dude in makeup.
In Argentina, Alba Ruada is a transgender woman who was kicked out of classrooms, barred for sitting for exams, refused job opportunities, subjected to violence, and rejected by her family. But in the face of these challenges, she worked to end violence and discrimination against the LGBTQI+ community in Argentina.
Did you see Tony Blinken fight the natural urge to flinch as that guy kissed him? There's no flinching allowed on International Men in Dresses Day. That might spoil the intended message for the audience, which is, hey, ladies, meet your new hero. He's the guy who's making fun of you. And they do welcome the guy. They clap like seals. And you wonder as you watch us, is feminism over? Let's see. Has Rome fallen? Yes. Feminism is over. Feminism has been flattened and sacked by the Visigoths of the trans movement. And if you doubt that, notice that all the women's awards these days seem to be going to men. Here you have Richard Levine put on an admiral's uniform with a skirt and become USA Today's Woman of the Year. William Thomas wears a one-piece bathing suit and gets nominated for NCAA Woman of the Year. Then some guy who calls himself Faye, with an E, was Hershey's Women's Day honoree, and so on. So the men are taking all the prizes set aside for women. But that's not all they're stealing. They're also taking what progressive called lived experiences. So anyone can throw on a halter top. But the real dividing line is biology. Only actual women can have menstrual cycles. Oh, not anymore. Anything a woman can do, a man can do better. That's the slogan of the trans movement. And that includes getting cramps. Watch this.
Why? Stop. Why is this thing not hot? I swear to God, if anyone says welcome to womanhood, I'm gonna lose my...
Talk about mansplaining. That's the ultimate mansplaining. Some guy, ladies, at a certain time each month, your tummy may hurt a little. Let me tell you about it and what to do when that happens. It's too funny. Of course, if men can get their periods, by definition, they can also get pregnant. And that's why we need legal abortion. So men won't be forced into back alleys. Watch law professor Kiera Bridges explain.
You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence. Denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist.
I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies.
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get
pregnant. So you are denying that trans people exist?
How long did that woman spend in the North Korean brainwashing camp? How long would she hesitate before killing you? Not long. So here she is telling Senator Hawley, stop defending the matriarchy, Senator. Abortion is between a man and his doctor. Hands off men's bodies. Abortion is for the men. Well, the media agree, by the way.
So we've all been talking about what the Dobbs decision means for women, but it also matters for non-binary and trans birthing people. So I went to Atlanta, Georgia to hear from one trans man about his experience with abortion.
Do you believe then that men can become pregnant and have abortions?
Yes. Trans men and non-binary people do become pregnant.
So long as you have a uterus, you have the capability of getting pregnant. And if you think that accessing abortion care is stigmatizing when you present as a woman, imagine what it is when you're presenting as your authentic male self.
I appreciate your mentioning that there are transgender men and non-binary individuals who rely on reproductive health services and abortion services.
Somewhere at the University of Alabama, those fraternity brothers are throwing in another dip and howling. We got them to make abortion all about men's bodies. We got them to watch TikTok videos where some dude lectures them about menstrual cramps. We got them to give all the ladies awards to men and feel virtuous as they were doing it. It is the funniest practical joke ever. Of course, it eliminated an entire category of humanity.
And that was Tucker Carlson. And I think it was a very a shrewd piece. I like Tucker Carlson's show, or pieces of his show, because he doesn't just whine and complain. First of all, he's got a sense of humor. And the other part is he's not afraid to mock the left. So many people seem to be afraid to do anything, except whine and complain. So many right-wing talk show hosts will just complain and complain and complain and present things in order to try to gin up some sort of outrage on the part of their listening audience. And that's why I like Tucker Carlson, because, again, he's not afraid to mock the left. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, 30 Covert Emotional Manipulation Tactics by Adeline Birch, Chapter 2.
2. How can you tell if you're being manipulated? 19 signs. Emotional manipulation can be so subtle and undercover that it can control you for a long time before you figure out what's happening, if you ever do at all. Some manipulators are highly skilled. They are described as puppet masters, and you could unknowingly become a puppet if you don't know the signs. As your strings are pulled this way and that, you do just what the puppet master wants you to do. You think you're acting from your own free will, but you're not. If you're a victim of manipulation, you probably know something is wrong, but you're not quite sure what it is. You might even suspect you're being manipulated, but you don't know for sure if you are or how it's being done. One thing you do know is that you want answers. Are you being manipulated or not? How can you tell? Actually, It is easier and more obvious than you might think it is. It's smart to learn the techniques of covert emotional manipulation, and you'll do just that in the next chapter. But the truth is, you don't have to know anything at all about the techniques to know if you're being manipulated. You only need to look at yourself to know if manipulation is at play. Manipulation is detrimental and has profound negative effects on us, even if we don't know it's happening. Those negative effects are the evidence left when the crime of manipulation has taken place. If you are in a relationship and notice any of the following signs, there is a high probability you are being manipulated. Your joy at finding love has turned into the fear of losing it. Your feelings have gone from happiness and euphoria to anxiety, sadness, and even desperation. Your mood depends entirely on the state of the relationship, and you are experiencing extreme highs and lows. You're unhappy in the relationship and uncertain about it much of the time, yet you dread losing it because you're blissfully happy every now and then. You feel like you're responsible for ruining the best thing that ever happened to you, but you're not sure how. Your relationship feels very complex, although you don't know why. When talking to others about it, you might find yourself saying, "It's hard to explain. It's just really complicated." You continually obsess about the relationship, analyzing every detail repeatedly in a desperate attempt to figure it out. You talk about it all the time to anyone who will listen. It doesn't do any good. You never feel sure of where you stand with your partner, which leaves you in a perpetual state of uncertainty and anxiety. You frequently ask your partner if something is wrong. It really does feel as if something's wrong, but you are not sure what it is. You are frequently on the defensive. You feel misunderstood and have the need to explain and defend yourself. You seem to have developed a problem with trust, jealousy, insecurity, anger, or overreaction, which your partner has pointed out to you on many occasions. You feel ongoing anger or resentment for someone. You have become a detective. You scour the web for information about your partner, keep a close eye on his or her social media accounts, and feel a need to check their web search history, texts, or emails. When they are not at home, you have a desire to verify their whereabouts as you worry about where they really are. You feel that you don't truly know how to make your partner happy. You try hard, but nothing seems to work, at least not for long. You used to make them very happy, and you're not sure what's changed. Expressing negative thoughts and emotions feels restricted or even forbidden, so you try to keep those things to yourself. You feel frustrated at being unable to talk about things that are bothering you. You don't feel as good about yourself as you did before the relationship. You feel less confident, less secure, less intelligent, less sane, less trusting, less attractive, or in some other way, less than you were before. You always feel you're falling short of your partner's expectations. You feel inadequate. You often feel guilty and find yourself apologizing a lot. You continually try to repair damage you believe you've caused. You blame yourself for your partner pulling away from you. You can't understand why you keep sabotaging the relationship. You carefully control your words, actions, and emotions around your partner to keep him or her from withdrawing their affection again. At times, you erupt like an emotional volcano filled with anger, frustration, and even hostility. You have never acted this way before and vow that you will stop. But no matter how hard you try, it keeps happening. You do things you aren't really comfortable with or that go against your values, limits, or boundaries in order to make your partner happy and keep the relationship intact. You should have your answer. There is one caveat. If your past relationships have had an ongoing pattern of insecurity, mistrust, and fear of abandonment, you may have a psychological issue that would benefit from professional intervention. You might be wondering how you or anyone else could stay in a relationship that causes fear, anxiety, depression, self-doubt, confusion, and frustration. Wouldn't you know something is terribly wrong? Why would you stay? First, relationships don't start out this way. In fact, the relationship probably got off to an amazing start. He or she seemed like your perfect partner, maybe even your soulmate, and the honeymoon phase was idyllic. When things took a turn for the worse, you had no idea what was really going on. Naturally, you would try to work things out and regain what once was so promising and wonderful. Having been manipulated into blaming yourself for the problems, you hang on and desperately try to repair the damage you believe you caused and regain your partner's love. Your loyalty seems to pay off, and you and your partner are once again close and loving. For a while. It becomes a cycle, one you're not fully aware of. Second, manipulation begins slowly and insidiously, and gradually escalates. Manipulation is an evolving process over time. According to Harriet B. Breaker, Ph.D., author of Who's Pulling Your Strings? Breaker says victims are controlled through a series of promised gains and threatened losses, covertly executed through a variety of manipulation tactics. In other words, the manipulation builds gradually as the abuser creates uncertainty and doubt by going back and forth from giving you what you desire to threatening to take it away. This cycle will be discussed in more detail in the chapter on the manipulation tactic of intermittent reinforcement. Joe Navarro, M.A., a 25-year veteran of the FBI, and the author of the book Dangerous Personalities, writes, "In the end, it doesn't matter how you got into that relationship. It is the realization that it is one-sided, exploitative, and toxic that counts. The questions that need to be asked are very simple. Are they using their charms or behavior to control you or others for their own benefit? Are they manipulating you? Are they doing things that hurt you or put you at risk? Do you feel like this relationship is one-sided? Are you hurting in this relationship? If the answer to these questions is yes, it is time to untangle yourself from the toxic strings that control you, so you can get your life back. Take heed. You have no social obligation to be victimized, ever." Emotional manipulation is emotional abuse. A person who controls your feelings and behavior with manipulation does not value or respect you or care about your well-being. Leave the relationship if at all possible, and seek professional counseling if necessary. Involvement with a skilled manipulator can result in serious and lasting harm. Only you can decide if a relationship is worthwhile and salvageable, or if it is detrimental to you and needs to end. The last chapter will provide you with resources that will enable you to learn how to deal with manipulators. Awareness is one of your primary defenses against covert manipulation. With that thought, what follows are descriptions of 30 covert emotional manipulation tactics. A few of them will be explored in more depth in chapters that follow.
And that was Chapter 2 of 30 Covert Emotional Manipulation Tactics by Adeline Birch. And so you need to listen to this book in terms of politics, in terms of the relationship between Republicans and Democrats. And I think you're going to find a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, 20 minutes of the former President Barack Obama and he is going to be giving out the Medal of Honor.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, be with us today as we gather to see Senior Chief Edward Byers receive our country's highest military honor from the hands of the President. We offer you our thanks for the integrity, generosity of spirit, and valor that mark Senior Chief Byers' life in service to our country. We offer you our thanks for the rescue of Dr. Joseph. We thank you for restoring both of them safely to the embrace of those who love them. At the same time, our hearts go out to Petty Officer Nicholas Check and to his family and friends. May a grateful America always remember and honor his service and his sacrifice. Amen.
Please be seated. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the White House. The ethos, the creed that guides every Navy SEAL says this: I do not advertise the nature of my work, nor seek recognition for my actions. Which is another way of saying that standing here today in front of the entire nation is not Senior Chief Ed Byers' idea of a good time. Like so many of our special operators, Ed is defined by a deep sense of humility. He doesn't seek the spotlight. In fact, he shuns it. He's the consummate, quiet professional. I imagine there are a lot of other places he'd rather be than in front of all these cameras. Back in Coronado for another Hell Week, holding his breath under dark, frigid water, spending months being cold, wet, and sandy. I'm sure there are other things he'd rather be doing. But the Medal of Honor is our nation's highest military decoration. And today's ceremony is truly unique. A rare opportunity for the American people to get a glimpse of a special breed of warrior that so often serves in the shadows. We're a nation of more than 300 million Americans. Of these, less than 1% wear the uniform of our armed forces. Of these, just a small fraction serve in our special operations forces. Among those who train to become a SEAL, only a select few emerge and earn the right to wear that golden trident. And consider this: in the entire history of the Navy SEALs, just 5 have been awarded the Medal of Honor. Their names have become legend: Norris, Carey, Thornton, Murphy, Mansour, and now a 6th, Byers. Among the members of the Medal of Honor Society who are with us, we are especially honored by the presence of Tommy Norris and Mike Thornton. Now, given the nature of Ed's service, there is a lot that we cannot say today. Many of the operational details of his mission remain classified. Many of his teammates cannot be mentioned, and this is as it should be. Their success demands secrecy, and that secrecy saves lives. There are, however, many distinguished guests that we can acknowledge, including members of Congress, leaders from across our military, including the Navy. In fact, this may be the largest gathering of special ops in the history of the White House. Among them, we have from Special Operations Command, General Joe Votel and Vice Admiral Sean Pybus. From Joint Special Operations Command, Rear Admiral Tim Szymanski. And from Naval Special Warfare Command, Rear Admiral Brian Losey and Force Master Chief Derek Walters. For America's special operators this is a little bit of a family reunion, and it's wonderful to have them all here. Most of all, we welcome Ed's wonderful family. His wife, Madison, who, like so many military spouses, has kept their family strong back home while Ed has been deployed. Their spectacular daughter, Hannah, who is a competitive figure skater and looks the part. Ed likes to jump out of planes with a parachute, and when he's not skydiving, he's driving his 1976 shovelhead Harley. When he's not out riding, he's staying in shape with Hannah, who is apparently his workout partner. It's good when your trainer is a Navy SEAL. We also welcome Ed's mom, Peggy, who I understand had one question when Ed told her about this ceremony. Do you think I can come? That's so sweet. Yes, Mom, you're allowed to come when your son gets the Medal of Honor. Ed's brothers and sisters are here, as are about 50 cousins from all across the country, and dozens of friends, many who served alongside Ed, some who have traveled from around the world to be here today. That's the brotherhood, the depth of loyalty to service and to mission that binds these teams. Now, looking back, it seems Ed Byers was destined to serve. His father served in the Navy during World War II and now rests in Arlington. As a boy growing up in Grand Rapids, Ohio, Ed would be in the woods, in camouflage, in his words, playing military. And I suspect the other kids did not stand a chance. A Boy Scout who loved adventure, Ed saw a movie about the Navy SEALs and fell in love with the idea of deploying by sea, air, and land. I believe that man will not merely endure, he will prevail, William Faulkner once said, because he has a soul, a spirit capable of compassion and sacrifice and endurance. Now, even if he had never performed the actions for which he's being recognized here today, Ed Byers would be long remembered for his compassion, his sacrifice, and his endurance. 11 overseas deployments, 9 combat tours, recipient of the Purple Heart twice, Bronze Star with Valor 5 times. About 3 years ago, our nation called on that spirit once again. In Afghanistan, an American doctor, a husband and father of 4 children who was working to bring health care to the Afghan people, was driving down a rural road. Gunmen surrounded his car and took him hostage. They tied his hands and marched him into the mountains. The days went by. In a remote valley, in a small single-room building surrounded by Taliban, he lost all hope. I was certain he thought I was about to die. His captors told him, "The Americans are not coming for you." Well, they were wrong. Whenever Americans are taken hostage in the world, we move heaven and earth to bring them home safe. We send some thunder and some lightning. Our special operator forces, folks like Ed Byers. They're carefully selected for their character, their integrity, and their judgment. They are highly trained with skills honed by years of experience. And they willingly volunteer for missions of extraordinary risk like this one. In this case, there was reason to believe that the Taliban commander was on his way to take custody of the American hostage and move him into Pakistan. So time was of the essence. From a remote forward operating base, Ed and his joint team geared up, boarded their helos, and launched. Once on the ground, they moved under the cover of darkness on that cold December night, through the mountains, down rocky trails for hours. They found their target and moved in quickly and quietly. Then, when they were less than 100 feet from the building, a guard came out, and the bullets started flying. Our SEALs rushed to the doorway, which was covered by a layer of blankets. Ed started ripping them down, exposing himself to enemy fire. A teammate, the lead assaulter, pushed in and was hit. Fully aware of the danger, Ed moved in next. An enemy guard aimed his rifle right at him. Ed fired. Someone moved across the floor. perhaps the hostage, perhaps another guard lunging for a weapon. The struggle was hand to hand. Ed straddled him, pinning him down. Ed adjusted his night vision goggles. Things came into focus, and he was on top of a guard. The American hostage later described the scene. The dark room suddenly filled with men and the sound of exploding gunfire. Narrow beams of light shot in every direction. Voices called out his name. He answered, "I'm right here." Hearing English, Ed leapt across the room and threw himself on the hostage, using his own body to shield him from the bullets. Another enemy fighter appeared, and with his body, Ed kept shielding the hostage. With his bare hands, Ed pinned the fighter to the wall and held him until his teammates took action. It was over almost as soon as it began. In just minutes, by going after those guards, Ed saved the lives of several teammates and that hostage. "You're safe," the SEALs told the doctor. "You are with American forces." And that hostage came home to be reunited with his wife and his children. And success came with a price. That first SEAL through the door, Ed's friend Nick, was grievously wounded. Ed is a medic, so on the helo out, he stayed with Nick, helping to perform CPR the entire flight, 40 minutes long. Today we salute Chief Petty Officer Nicholas Check. Back in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, they remembered him as the driven kid, the football player and wrestler who always wanted to be a SEAL. For his valor on this mission, he was awarded the Navy Cross, and he's among the 70 members of the Naval Special Warfare Community, 55 of them SEALs, who've made the ultimate sacrifice since 9/11. The enduring love of Nick's family and all those who admired him remind us of the immense sacrifices that our remarkable Gold Star families have made and our obligation to stand with them always. So today, we don't simply honor a single individual, we also pay tribute to a community across our entire military. Special operators, aviators, engineers, technicians, analysts, countless enablers, and their devoted families. In these hard years since 9/11, our nation has called on this community like never before. Small in number, they have borne an extraordinarily heavy load. But they continue to volunteer, mission after mission, year after year. Few Americans ever see it. I am truly privileged and humbled that as Commander-in-Chief, I do get to see it. I've given the order sending you into harm's way. I see the difference you make every day, the partners you train, the relationships you forge, the other hostages that you've brought home, the terrorists that you take out. I've waited, like many of you, in those minutes that seem like hours when the margin between success and failure is razor thin, for word that the team is out safe. I've grieved with you, and I've stood with you at Dover to welcome our fallen heroes on their final journey home. Our Special Operations Forces are a strategic national asset. They teach us that humans are more important than hardware. Today's a reminder that our nation has to keep investing in this irreplaceable asset, which means deploying our special operators wisely, preserving force and family, making sure these incredible Americans stay strong in body, in mind, and in spirit. So I'll end where I started, with the SEAL ethos. In times of war or uncertainty, there's a special breed of warrior ready to answer our nation's call. A common man with uncommon desire to succeed. Forged by adversity, he stands alongside America's finest special operations forces to serve his country, the American people, and protect their way of life. Senior Chief Edward Byers, Jr., is such a man. Chief Petty Officer Nicholas Check was that man. Every Navy SEAL and special operator who serves with honor in his chosen profession is that man. People may not always see them. We may not always hear of their success, but they are there in the thick of the fight, in the dark of night, achieving their mission. We thank God they're there. We sleep more peacefully in our beds tonight because patriots like these stand ready to answer our nation's call and protect our way of life now and forever. And as we prepare for the reading of the citation, I ask you to join me in expressing America's profound gratitude to Navy SEAL Ed Byers and all our quiet professionals.
The President of the United States, in the name of the Congress, takes pleasure in presenting the Medal of Honor to Chief Special Warfare Operator Edward C. Byers, Jr., United States Navy, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty as a hostage rescue force team member in Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom on 8 to 9 December 2012. As the rescue force approached the target building, an enemy sentry detected them and darted inside to alert his fellow captors. The sentry quickly re-emerged and the lead assaulter attempted to neutralize him. Chief Byers with his team sprinted to the door of the target building. As the primary breacher, Chief Byers stood in the doorway fully exposed to the enemy fire while ripping down 6 layers of heavy blankets fastened to the inside ceiling and walls to clear a path for the rescue force. The first assaulter pushed his way through the blankets and was mortally wounded by enemy small arms fire from within. Chief Byers, completely aware of the imminent threat, fearlessly rushed into the room and engaged an enemy guard aiming an AK-47 at him. He then tackled another adult male who had darted towards the corner of the room. During the ensuing hand-to-hand struggle, Chief Byers confirmed the man was not the hostage and engaged him. As the other rescue team members called out to the hostage, Chief Byers heard a voice, respond in English, and raced towards it. He jumped atop the American hostage and shielded him from the high volume of fire within the small room. While covering the hostage with his body, Chief Byers immobilized another guard with his bare hands and restrained the guard until a teammate could eliminate him. His bold and decisive actions under fire saved the lives of the hostage and several of his teammates. By his undaunted courage, intrepid fighting spirit, and unwavering devotion to duty in the face of near-certain death, Chief Petty Officer Byers reflected great credit upon himself and upheld the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service.
And that was former President Barack Obama presenting the Medal of Honor to a Navy SEAL. And back in a minute.
home last night. Fell down on my bed and cried. Yeah, and I went home last night. Fell down on my bed and cried. I didn't have no blues. Poor light and just couldn't be satisfied.
This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. So I'm reminding you that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win.